guys, I really tried. Like, I really tried to avoid this show when it comes to people enjoying it, especially when it comes to its characters being likable in their own way. But at the same time, this episode, Hold It Lazlo, was an episode that I actually wanted to review for such a long time. It just got scrapped due to other projects that were better than this episode review right here. But to tell you the truth, with the situation I'm in right now, I felt like it's honestly accurate to finally review this episode. Mainly the fact that it still reminds me on how the characters, mainly Edward, are the ones that I can't honestly relate to when it came to the execution of every single character being dumb for the sake of plot, all the while using the out of order in other scenarios just to make sure that Lazlo doesn't use the bathroom. The reason why he wants revenge on Lazlo is because he lost to him in a lemonade drinking contest, and he prevents Lazlo to go to the bathroom. And when Lazlo reaches his breaking point, he goes to the Camp Kidney restrooms and uses the bathroom. But there was only 4.5 minutes in order to wrap up this episode. To tell you the truth, if everyone knows it's Bentley episode had better execution by toning it down or shortening it down into 11 or 12 minutes better than this episode, well, its only main plot of it is mainly Lazlo holding it for about 6 minutes is really saying something. Granted, this episode is better than the Foster's episode, but at the same time, the remaining minutes of this episode didn't really make this episode any better. But I'm saving that for later. The premise of the episode of Lazlo needing to go to the bathroom, I have to admit, it's better than what Craig of the Creek did back in 2018 when it came to Craig needing to use the bathroom, but not in the same way as what Lazlo needs to do in this episode. I will admit, it's honestly promising to have an episode focusing on that, especially in a show like this, but considering that this is mainly about Edward's revenge, it falls flat. Because to tell you the truth, I never found Edward relatable in this show, even if I forgot most of the episodes from this show. Aside from Dozy Do, but that's mainly the fact that it had different problems. The problem is that every time that Edward loses, he honestly takes it out on Lazlo, and to tell you the truth, the fact that Lazlo isn't even aware that Edward is preventing him from using the bathroom is really saying on the fact that this is basically a day without tears, except that the two characters don't make a bet, and they're not really communicating each other when it comes to the character needing to use the bathroom and the other character wanting revenge. Obviously, this is similar to SpongeBob and Squidward from SpongeBob, but the thing is, I can at least understand the gimmick of SpongeBob annoying Squidward for mainly seasons 1 through 3. When it comes to anything afterwards, obviously it's overboard to the point that they have no limitations. But in this episode, in the show in general, with the two not communicating, it really feels like I don't see Lazlo as SpongeBob or Edward as Squidward, because to tell you the truth, when they spend no time at camp and when Edward wants revenge on Lazlo, despite the fact that Lazlo ends up beating him fair and square, it really made me think that Edward can't be able to handle himself without having revenge off of someone who defeats him fairly. And when it comes to Lazlo in this episode, I wouldn't say that this is torture for him, considering that this is part of Edward's revenge, but at the same time, the first half of the episode doesn't make him actually think correctly and mostly dumb down. Granted, it's nowhere near as bad as Samson Needs a Hug, but at the same time, I can't take his character seriously when he's like this, when it came to being around with other characters. And to tell you the truth, the line that he had to rate it is not even humorous. It's honestly badly done, and the fact that he instantly goes to the bathroom later on by removing the out of order sign, it really shows that there was no focus in this episode. Camp Lazlo doesn't need to be focused, I understand that, but at the same time, when you literally are just moving forward with a plot by eliminating aspects that would instantly bite you in the butt later, mainly him realizing that the toilets in the restrooms weren't out of order, it really made me think that the SpongeBob material in this episode doesn't even work. I'm gonna be really real with you that with this show taking aspects from SpongeBob and turning it into their own would have worked out if it doesn't have these types of elements. Because to tell you the truth, the dynamic of Edward and Lazlo when it comes to their different personalities, it never clicked to me, and it never got any better as I got into better cartoons. The problem is that, like I said, Edward just doesn't admit that Lazlo is better than him in some aspects. And to tell you the truth, just seeing Lazlo not witnessing that Edward is doing all this just to have revenge on him, and when he gets back at him due to a huge misunderstanding and dumb luck, then it's not giving me any SpongeBob vibes, even though that I used to watch this show, because I can tell you for a fact that I wasn't even thinking about SpongeBob while watching this show as a child. When the episode is padded out, and they couldn't be able to pad out with 4 minutes and 30 seconds to spare, is really saying something. Mainly the scene where they go to the Squirrel Scouts restrooms, but at the same time, there's only for the girls to use the bathroom. In all honesty, this would have been much more better if Edward wasn't being this selfish and instantly acting revenge on him, and mainly the other characters helping Lazlo out when it comes to the out of order, being out of order rather than Edward messing with him at the restrooms at Camp Kidney. Believe me, there are different ideas that can make this episode better when it comes to other characters carrying the episode. I mean, granted, using the bathroom is a typical idea to make an episode out of, but at the same time, this would have been much more better than the Craig of the Creek episode, but at the same time, it's only better on being the less worse. Honestly, if this episode's true intention was to show Lazlo finally using the bathroom as satisfaction, all the while showing live action bits while he's using the bathroom, not gonna lie, it was actually satisfying, which is honestly one of the moments that I actually enjoy as a kid, but at the same time, it was when I was a kid that I actually enjoyed this. The thing is, you can still feel the need to see this scene as relatable on what Lazlo is feeling when it comes to looking at waterfalls, or imagine yourself using the bathroom with waterfalls falling. In all honesty, if this is honestly the true intention on making this entire episode, the very least they could have made this episode a little bit more better, because let's get into the 4 minutes and 30 seconds that this episode couldn't be able to pad out completely. Edward gives Lazlo a diaper, who he tells him that it's not a diaper because it's for babies, and calls it a Tinker Tuck. I need to be real with you. I didn't understand the meaning of the final minutes of this episode when I was a child, and the more I get older and older, the more I realize of how unfocused and how less developed this episode is. And when I say less developed, I meant the fact that they couldn't be able to pad out the episode completely when it comes to Lazlo using the bathroom, and when it comes to this, it's one of the main examples of why I wanted to review this episode. Because the next 4 minutes and 30 seconds, the rest of the plot of Lazlo using the bathroom just drops, and it somewhat feels like false advertising. Granted, it manages to succeed when it comes to half of the episode's runtime, but at the same time, when you're not throwing in the entire plot involving that main plot point of Lazlo needing to use the bathroom, then it really shows that they clearly don't know what to do with this episode. Here's the thing. Lazlo, in the second half of the episode, despite managing to convince everyone that it's not a diaper of what he's wearing, with the other characters wearing diapers, with Edward actually being convinced that it's not a diaper, I'm sorry, but this is an indication that I just don't think that this payback against Edward or Karma isn't really deserved because of how dumbly structured it all is. Also, the bit where they actually use the bathroom in their diapers, I'm sorry, but this is reaching to diaper fetish levels. Granted, the really loud house really beats this episode when it comes to Lincoln in live action form wearing a diaper, but at the same time, this just screams diaper fetish before diaper fetish became a thing that was honestly well known when it comes to it being infamous. Honestly, if I want to find sympathy towards Edward when it comes to his brothers being that rude towards him, then at the very least, at least give him something to be a lot more better by not doing revenges on characters doing bad things and having him stay that way towards the end of the series. Because to tell you the truth, with this show not taking characters seriously in aspects like this, which reach to the brothers, mainly Edward's brothers, being way more worse, and yet at the same time we're supposed to think about how they're the reason why Edward is the way that he is, but at the same time Edward doesn't change, then there's honestly no hope. And I'm not even enjoying Edward's karma whatsoever, because every single character in this episode, with the exception of maybe Raj and Clam, who tried to defend Lazlo from getting embarrassed while being in a diaper, despite the fact that they put on diapers after Lazlo tells them what they really are, this episode was really bad. And to tell you the truth, it really sums up onto why that I remember this episode the most when it comes to the negative aspects behind it as I get older and older. Look, this show can't be good when it's doing good elements, but at the same time, there's a reason onto why I prefer other shows than this when it comes to Cartoon Network. I looked into the bad, the good, the bad, the good, and when it comes to the bad from this episode, to tell you the truth, I can't be able to find this show as a part of my childhood when I got older and older. That's how much that this episode, along with the other bad episodes, are difficult to find any qualities in this show. This episode review could be my last centering around Camp Lazlo, but then again, I might find an episode that could be good, but at the same time, I could find another bad episode. Honestly, there's always a pattern on finding a good episode, a bad episode when it comes to this show. But hopefully when it comes to this year, this is pretty much the only Camp Lazlo episode that I'm going to be reviewing. Hopefully. I'm giving this episode a 2.25 out of 10.